Honda Fireblade has always been one of the best handling little sports bikes on the market. Now the factory celebrates the 20th anniversary of the model with an upgraded version to raise handling qualities to an even higher level. Well, the list of the modifications is not too long, but it is very important. Big piston forks and the new rear shock from Showa are responsible for better handling. The Supersport ABS has been revised for a better performance on the racetrack. And also the fuel injection has been tuned up for an even smoother power delivery. Instead of increasing the 180 horsepower output, the engineers have been focusing on precise handling, keeping on the philosophy started 20 years ago by the launch of the first CBR1000RR. Thus we need a location where we can really try out how the new CBR performs, and Honda staff have chosen just the right spot for that. The scene of the first test ride is the tricky Portimao racetrack, so I get on my ladders and try out how the new machine performs. This circuit is like a roller coaster with lots of elevation changes, astonishing uphills and slopes, blind corners, and bumpy brake distances.
At the morning presentation we were told that the 185 kilos weight of the first 900RR was rated so light 20 years ago. There was a journalist who carried a pair of scales to the launch at Phillip Island. And then a grizzled German colleague next to me began to laugh. He was that guy.
He has been carrying a pair of scales all the way to Australia because he couldn't believe a 900cc sports bike can be so light. But it was. And it meant the RR has opened a new chapter in the history of handling of sports bikes.
This is it, the handling. This is the trump card of the Fireblade. Particularly from the 2008 model line, the base of this bike. From that model we feel things are just right, the ergonomics are really good, we sit in the bike, not on. It's very easy to throw it into the corners and there is plenty of feedback. There is not so much end power as in a few competitors, but this engine delivers a huge amount of torque and this is what really counts on the road. Most customers ride on public roads and never go to a racetrack. Oh, if they knew, but they have missed out!
So there is no mode switch, no traction control, wheelie control or quick shifter. Faithfully following the Fireblade traditions, in case of this model the point is to let the rider to be able to control the bike in every situation. Thus excellent suspension components and the perfect harmony of them is a must.
Suspension! The damping is excellent, let me say the bumps almost disappeared from the asphalt of Portimao. And the balance of this bike is also great. The front and rear suspension superbly work together. Before this test I thought to myself many times to pay attention coming out of corners because lately I was riding such bikes equipped with traction control. But today I really don't miss the TC. I feel like it's a child's play to put the power to the asphalt. Even so, we are speaking about 180 horsepower. Now how the hell did they do that?
There is an all-new suspension with big piston forks and the so-called balance-free rear cushion, the same what we use in the Japanese Superbike Championship and the Suzuka 8 Hours race.
日本の鈴鹿8時間耐久。
The big piston fork use a unique construction with a bigger damping volume to reduce the hydraulic pressure generated as the forks compress and extend.
原水が働きます。
The result is a more effective damping, more feel from the front tire and enhanced stability during hard braking.
出ているというふうに考えます。バルブピストン
Instead of the conventional single tube layout, the new Showa balance-free rear cushion uses a double tube design, a damper case and an internal cylinder.
働くようにまたその
The damper piston features no valves. Instead, the damping force is generated as displaced oil passes through a separate damping component. This allows pressure changes within the cushion to be controlled even more smoothly.
形に今回はさせてもらってます。
The Supersport ABS is also revamped because the previous generation system was too careful in some situations. For example, it gave away too much braking force by hitting the bump on a hard brake distance. It was frightening sometimes, so refinement was necessary, and it happened now. This new system has no such problem. I force it as hard as I can, but I don't feel anything about the system interaction. Not even here at the bumpy downhill brake distance of Portimao main straight. And the slipper clutch. It's working so smooth, like it was some racing component. There are plenty of new features on the dashboard, and there is a gear position indicator at last. The whole panel looks like a dashboard of a race bike, and there are lots of features that can be set up with our personal pleasure.
This is like the new feature of this instrument panel. Now this is the mode where you select from 4 different variations of the digital rev. This is like the conventional rev meter, which I guess everybody is familiar with. And this is like the reversal of that. It shows you disappearing segments as the rev goes up. And third, we have the peak hold type of function, where it leaves a segment at which you shift it up, for instance. And the last is like a needle. It's just a fun feature.
Itt van a Superbike maga. There is one of my colleagues from Superbike magazine Hungary. It is Zoli, the funny guy. He has been riding the previous version of this bike last year. It was his long-term test bike. He rode it on the street and on the racetrack, that's different situations. Zoli, what do you think of this new machine? The most important to mention is the refined ABS system, which chop in much later on the braking distances. The new suspension is important, and not only the big piston forks, but also the new rear shock. These two parts work well together and result in a really good balance of the bike. And I think this bike is slightly more powerful in the mid-range thanks to the new fueling system, as I feel it delivers more power in the mid-range.
Mid-range torque is the strong point of the CBR as well as the superb handling. The brakes are really powerful, and now the ABS is also perfect. Seat position is perfect, and the center of gravity must be in the best place because it is very easy to turn the RR fast. And the new suspension elements provide fantastic feedback. Everyone who likes to control the machine themselves will love this bike.
All in all, Fireblade is like a well-balanced, self-confident gentleman with a strong, sporty attitude of mind. One like probably all of us would like to be.